Then we've got Jeffrey Smith, who's an incredible researcher. I was reading some articles he'd written. I tuned in to Genesis one night, was listening to Rents, heard him on there, and so often what happens is I've read thousands of documents and articles over the years about GMO foods and hormones in the food and the milk and these synthetic hormones, and you forget it all. Well, you don't completely forget it. It's like in your mind, and then you get on air and you kind of shorthand. By shorthand, you just go, yeah, the GMO is really bad for you. When they change one gene, it changes thousands of others randomly. And then I just kind of move on. I read a story here, I read a story there. But I heard this guy for like an hour on the radio, then I went and read a bunch of his writings and checked out his website. And he's an author, and it's all documented. And so you're saying, well, why are you having somebody on if you say you've already talked about it and you've already documented it? And if you're saying you know everything he's saying is true, why even have him on? Why shouldn't you just say it? Because he studies it all the time. He's up on it. He's constantly looking at it. He knows all the latest info. He was mentioning all these quotes and all these documents and all these statements where the GMO makers admit they know this is hurting people, admit they know that they don't know what they're doing, admit that it's created new amino acids that have never existed on planet Earth that are totally toxic. And we've had, again, Nobel Prize winners, top scientists on, who worked for these companies, and they're making millions of dollars a year themselves, and they still have the will to come out and say, we can't put this on store shelves, and then they get fired. And I respect people like that. We've had quite a few of them on who are heading up whole biotech divisions, you know, who have millions of dollars of stock in the company and are paid millions a year, and half the rats die in a month eating a new potato, and they go, this is being approved? We can't put this on shelves. And they say, shut up. Do you understand? That's why everybody's getting sick. Massive studies linked directly to the GMO corn, the potatoes, the other staple vegetable and grain crops, where you eat this stuff and then it causes your immune system to go into overdrive like you're fighting an illness every single day, and basically that wears your body out. And what happens is when your body stops fighting cancer, when your body stops fighting outside organisms, that's when you get cancer. That's when you get more allergies. That's when you get autoimmune diseases. That's when you get blood diseases. We have all the studies on this. And that's only one area of discussion here. They know it's causing all sorts of diseases of the upper and lower intestine and the stomach. They know that it's causing massive increases in diabetes. They know that it's causing all sorts of inflammation of the brain. And we have all these studies, but he can just sit here and rocket them off and give you source after source after source after source, and then whole other areas of synthetic bovine growth hormone and a cocktail of other hormones that they give the milk cow so they'll make 3, 4, 5 times the milk a milk cow normally would. And then you drink them into your system, and the boys are effeminate. I don't want to get too graphic here, but when you're 10, 11, 12, you're supposed to, or even earlier, you're supposed to have a male's reproductive organs are like ovaries, but they sit on the outside because they need to be about 96 degrees to produce healthy sperm. This gets into the whole science of it. But your body's 98.9 or higher in some cases, or a little bit lower. And so they drop when you go into puberty. For women that don't know about this, and even most men don't remember this is the process, but when you go into puberty at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, I went into puberty at like 10, which is pretty early for a male, and they then descend. They're up in your body and they come down. Well, now they've got tens of thousands of males that are 20 years old and never had their testicles drop. And that's because of the hormones. Absolutely documented. See, I'm already getting off into this. I have all this economic news I want to get to. But we need to start focusing more intently in on this on the show. Now, conversely, the males are feminine. The males act feminine. They look feminine. They're filled with estrogen, and estrogen mimicking things that are in the milk, that are in the plastics. It's in everything. It's in just so many tens of thousands of products. But females, conversely, remember a few months ago, it was in the U.S. and British papers, big studies coming out with hundreds of thousands of girls going into puberty when they're 6. Thousands going into puberty when they're 3. And they take the child to the doctor, and, well, my 3-year-old is, developing larger mammary glands, larger breast. We're talking about 7-year-olds who aren't even pregnant, lactating. Just crazy stuff going on. Well, you're on hardcore, chemically produced, in big factories, hormones that make cows just produce massive amounts of milk. These are frankenfoods. And so it really hurts the girls, statistically worse than boys. And that's why breast cancer is way, way, way up. And again, it's a cocktail of things, but just the chemicals, just the hormones in the milk alone, and there's no debating this. This is absolutely proven in the company, Monsanto, and others that produce it, own internal documents. There have been films made on it with the documents. There have been lawsuits. The documents have come out. They know it does this. They know it takes your girl, and girls are supposed to go into puberty later than boys, and she should be going to puberty at 13, 14 years old, and she's going to go into puberty at 3 years old, and you're going to take her to the doctor, and as the doctors say, get her off GMO foods, get her off the cheeses and other milk products and yogurts that have these hormones in them, these unnatural hormones? No, he's not going to do that. He is going to put her on a hormone regimen that is going to block out and cancel out the other hormones, and there's going to be fluctuations. The hormones are very toxic to the liver and other glands. They're associated, higher hormone levels, with cancers. It is our sexual drive that burns us out. It is tissues in the body that have higher exchange rates of hormone fluctuation that they're very toxic. Even natural hormones. And so that's why you generally get cancers in hormonally rich regions. See, sharks do not get cancer because sharks do not operate on a hormone system. Mammals do. And most other life forms do. Sharks don't. I've just seen TV specials on it and read about it. They really study the sharks. I'm sure you know about it as well. The point is, this is all documented. And they don't get cancer. And they've pegged it to they don't have hormones. And it just expands from there. It's lizards rarely get. Reptiles don't get a lot of cancers either. They do have hormones, but at much lower levels than us. But you notice they're also cold-blooded. They have to go out and have the sun. See, we have internal engines that drive us. We're very, very dynamic creatures. But the flame that burns twice as bright only burns half as long. And we have done amazing things, extraordinary things. But we need to understand the nature of this. You start pouring a bunch of artificial hormones, or even if it was natural hormones hopped up, you're going to have problems. But these are synthetic, cheaply made, because you want cheap milk at the store. Yeah, milk would be 3-4 times the price, but it'd be 3-4 times thicker and more healthy. You know, they've even bred cows to have a different type of milk than they had a few hundred years ago. They found some cows that had some passive genetic traits to make a thinner type. They have different names and letter rankings. There's really 4 different types of milk that cows produce. I'm going from memory on this. Go look it up. And the milk we drink is the gruelish, thin junk